This is Reimagining Higher Education, your go-to podcast with remarkable education leaders sharing personal stories from their experience in and around the sector, including reflections and hope for progress in education. With your host, Professor Judyth Sachs, former PVC Learning and Teaching at the University of Sydney, Deputy Vice Chancellor and Provost at Macquarie University, Special Advisor in Higher Education at KPMG, and now Chief Academic Officer at Studiosity. Welcome.
It gives me great pleasure to introduce the Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin at La Crosse, Dr. James Beeby. James, when I was doing my research on you, you've been in post just over a year.
Yes.
And so you moved from, well, why don't you tell your story about how you came to be where you are now? But also, I asked you to bring something that recognizes your journey as a leader and a learner. So I'm going to throw it back to you.
Well, Judith, thank you. And thank you for inviting me for this opportunity. It's wonderful to meet you and to talk a little bit about my journey. And really, I think my journey really sort of encapsulates the sort of amazing opportunities that higher education gives folks. I went to college in 1988 in the United Kingdom, and at a time when people didn't go to college as much as they do now, and it just transformed my life. So, to tell you about my journey, I bought an object and I actually couldn't find my books because they're packed up. I read a couple of history books that no one read because they were pretty boring about Southern race and politics in the 19th century. So I'm going to show you two pictures here that are in my office. These are my twin daughters, Guinevere and Rosamond. That's them for Halloween. And that's my wife and I when I had a bit more hair than I do now. These three individuals are the light of my life and have made me a better person. And to think about what we do and what our legacy is. And my two children are both autistic with some challenges, and my wife homeschools them. And so I see the power of education every day, and the fact that sometimes we have to do a lot in order to support one another and to create those beautiful spaces that we have. So those, they're 13, just turned 13, and they are just, the apple of my eye, and just amazing young ladies, they call themselves, and they've just got into David Bowie's music and love David Bowie. So I feel like I've done something right, that they have got some British 1970s and 1980s music that they like. So I'm really excited about that.
You did your undergraduate degree at the University of Wales in history, and
Yeah.
then you made your way to the US. So what took you to the US, and then your life since graduating has been in the US?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So yeah, I'll back up a little bit and tell you, I think the important thing to know about me is that I'm a first generation college student. I'm from a very small village in England that no one's ever heard of, famous for two things. It had a Roman villa and it made the boots for the Duke of Wellington. That's all it's known for. So I went to college. My family believed in the importance of education, and I was able to go to college. And I went to the University of Wales, about 6 hours from where I lived in England. And I love Wales. I'd hiked a lot there, loved the mountains, been to Snowdonia, been to Brecon Beacons, a beautiful part of the country. And I really wanted to go to college. And my high school history teacher said, this is a great little college. It's the smallest college in Western Europe. And it had 750 students in those days. And I went and I fell in love with it because of the beautiful surroundings, the beautiful people, the great people that were there, just the beauty of the region, close to the coast. And I always tell this story to students here. I drove in my little Mini, those little Minis from the 90s, it was from the late 70s. I drove my little Mini there with my knees up to my face almost. And I got out and everybody was speaking Welsh as their first language. So here I am in the United Kingdom, and I go to a college in a town where people speak a different language to the language that I spoke. And I thought that was just fantastic. So, and I just had an amazing educational experience at that very small university. And I had great professors who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. They knew that I loved history and learning and discovering things and talking about ideas. And I had really great professors. And one of them was a professor by the name of Adam Fairclough, who is a very famous civil rights historian of the American civil rights movement. He's written probably 15 books on Martin Luther King, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, lots and lots of books. And I became his first graduate student because he thought I was a good student. And that's why I got into graduate work. And he said, go to the States, go and experience living in the United States for a year. And so you can actually, when you start writing your PhD book on this history of the South and race and politics, you'll actually been there, you'll understand it. So I went for a year. I came over in 1993 to go to 1 year for graduate school and get a master's degree. And I've stayed here ever since. I'll go back to visit, but I've become an American citizen. I've been in this country, the United States, since 1993 because that professor believed in me and it was the best advice he gave me. And I did that, and I've stayed ever since. So that's sort of my journey, really.
So you've worked at a number of universities, each
Hmm.
each different.
Yeah.
So what was what did you learn from each of the universities? So you might just tell people where you started, Middle Tennessee University. For what was that like?
Happy to do that. So I graduated with my PhD, was taught for a year at my university while I looked for a job. Went to West Virginia in the mountains, the tenure track there, in a very small liberal arts college. It was wonderful up there. A lot of challenges because of the population, the poverty in that area, but an amazing college there, liberal arts college. And from there, I moved to Indiana University in the Midwest
Mhm.
and spent 7 years as part of the Indiana University system, and a wonderful university that really believes in access and making sure that folks have an opportunity. So a lot of first generation college students at that university. I was a first generation college student. A lot of them working, a lot of them, struggling to make ends meet, as I did, and just a great, great place. I lived in Louisville, Kentucky, met my wife there, and then I got recruited to be a chair of a PhD department in Tennessee. So I moved from a small liberal arts college of 1,500 to about a state university of about 7,000 students, and then got recruited to be the chair of a department of a nationally ranked PhD program in history and public history at a university of about 25,000 students at Middle Tennessee State. So very different kinds of universities and colleges, but all focused on student success and making sure that we really support students. And I chaired a department with 50 faculty members, all great historians. It was a wonderful position. I had a great time there. Finished my second book, became a full professor, and thought I was going to stay a chair of a department. And then I got recruited to be a dean, the dean of a college of liberal arts with Ron Roshan, and had a wonderful experience there. Was there, so spent most of my time in the Midwest. And then I got recruited by a search firm to be a provost out in New England at a college called Keene State College, which is a very good university in New Hampshire, a smaller institution, about 4,000 students. And I was there for 3 years as provost, probably the hardest job I had because of all of the complexity of the work. But, we led a strategic planning effort, did a lot of great things there for about 3 years. Thought I would stay longer, but then I got recruited to be the Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin La Crosse, where I am now, and got hired in May of 2024 and started in July. And this is my second year as Chancellor. And this is a fantastic university. It's right on the Mississippi River. So it's in the what's called the Upper Midwest, part of the University of Wisconsin system, which is one of the strongest state systems in the United States, with a really, really great mission to bring education to everyone with what's called the Wisconsin idea, which started as a progressive era idea, fighting Bob Lafayette, who's an amazing, charismatic individual from that period. And we are a university of about 10,500 students, and we are ranked as the number 3 best regional university in the Midwest, public university. So we are the best public regional university in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Illinois. And we're very proud of that with our outcomes and the students that we have here and the fantastic faculty and staff. So it's an honor to lead this institution, and I'm happy every day, and it's a joy to be here. So that's my journey in as quick a time as possible.
And it's quite a journey. It's a wonderful story actually about once again the focus of the places that you teach are about student success and transforming students' lives. So I'm familiar with the University of Wisconsin at Madison. I've done 2 sabbaticals there.
Oh, wonderful.
Just loved it, except when winter came, I just found it a little trying.
It's a little colder than Australia. I will give you that, and it's a little colder than England. Most definitely, the winter. I've only been here for one winter, and it was a mild winter, But Madison's about 2 hours, 2.25 hours drive from here, and a wonderful university of 50,000 students. Of course, I know the Chancellor there. Chancellor Manukin is a wonderful person. And we're all part of the same system, which is really good. So you have two research universities, Milwaukee and Madison. Then you have the comprehensives and the Polytechnic. And our university is doing so well. We are a selective university, which means students want to come here, but we're also accessible from small rural areas, farms, up to big cities like Milwaukee and Minneapolis and others. So public access is really important to me because of the transformative power of higher education is so critical to the future success of this country and for our students. So I take it very seriously. I don't take myself very seriously, but I take the work very seriously.
Just imagine I've come over to visit you and you take me for a walk around campus.
Hmm.
What would we see and what would you show me to really impress the uniqueness and the value of your university?
Well, that's a great question. So what I would say is this. I walk around, I'm known as the walking chancellor because I like to walk around campus a lot. I just was walking out there today and talking to some students. And what you will see is you'll see a very vibrant campus. You'll see students talking and they're not on their cell phones. They are walking around talking, having conversations, and really engaging with each other. Lots of events on campus, lots of student activities. There's a real buzz on campus. There's a lot of connection on campus. And so what you'll see is a very vibrant campus. Students will be happy to talk to you. They wave and say hello to me. We sit down and chat. You will see a lot of things. And I ask students why they choose to come to UW La Crosse. And I go to lunch each week at the student cafeteria called the Whitney Center, and I sit with them for lunch. And they tell me the same three things about why they come here. And they will tell you this themselves if you were to ask them. They come here because our academics are very strong. Small classes taught all by faculty. There's no graduate assistants, very few adjuncts. It's full-time faculty and instructional staff that are teaching them. They come here because it's a beautiful area, very different to the rest of Wisconsin. It's called the driftless area. There were no glaciers here, so the landscape is beautiful, lots of valleys, and of course the Mississippi River,
Mm.
beautiful. They come here because the town is very, very pretty. And the third reason, this is an Americanism that they use, they say the campus is very homey. Homey. And I said to them, what do you mean? Because I don't use that expression. What do you mean by homey? It's safe, it's welcoming, there's lots going on. There's lots of student activities. There's not, there's sports. There's co-ed sports. There's an athletics presence, and there's lots of great energy on campus. And you would see that if you walk around. You'll see students doing things together, hanging out, talking, discussing ideas in the library. The library is nearly always packed with students studying, and you'll just see a lot of great energy on campus. And people, lots of people wearing UWL maroon and grey because they're proud of being students at a premier regional university. They like that. So you'll see that. And you'll see a lot of people from the community walking their dogs. You'll see
Mm.
people walking their dogs and folks, alums coming back and just having lunch on campus with a friend. I like that.
So is it a residential school?
It is a residential school. So we have about 3,000, just over 3,000 of our students living on campus. We actually have more students that want to live on our campus than we have residence halls for. So all first year students live on campus unless they live very close to campus, and some returning students, but the vast majority live off campus. But it's very much a residential campus. It's actually quite a compact campus in terms of its size. So you can get across campus in 10 minutes. It doesn't take more than 10 minutes to get to class from your residence hall. So it's really easy to get around. So people like that. So it's very manageable to walk around, and it's a residential campus. So there's residence halls in all parts of campus. So it's very nice.
And extracurricular activities for students? I mean, when I spent my 2 6-month periods at Madison, I did follow the Badgers.
Yes.
And I did go to a couple of ice hockey games, which to me were terrifying.
They are, well, I've actually never been to an ice hockey game. It's funny you say that because I actually want to go to one because it does look pretty terrifying on the TV. But yeah, lots of extracurricular activities. So we are a very strong athletic school, but our student athletes are students first. So
Mhm.
the average GPA of our student athletes is higher than our students. non-athletic students because they are very well organized. They train, they study together, so they do very well. And we have record teams. We have nationally ranked teams. Our football team is number 4 in the nation in Division 3, and just won a game last weekend. I go to cheer the team on. Our men's cross country team won the national championships. We have gymnastics that won national championships. We have women's soccer, the great soccer team that we have. So lots and lots of energy. Students do a lot of extracurricular things in terms of rec sports. So we have a very active. Our motto is mind and body, men's corpus K. And so it means that you get a good education and you also take care of yourselves and have healthy outcomes in your life. So lots of that sort of stuff. It's great. Lots of good energy.
When you think about the things that come across your desk as
Mhm.
Chancellor, how different are they now to when you started your sort of leadership career 10 years ago?
Well, that's a great question. So I would say that there's more complexity, Judith, in the role than there used to be. Some of the challenges of policy and unfunded mandates that we have to work on. Some of which are more challenging than others, but they are requirements, and we have to do that. So I would say that area has been a challenge with some of the new regulations coming out of the federal government over the last 5 years. That's been quite a significant change, I would say. And for me, and now in the role as Chancellor, being an advocate for the university and making sure that I meet with state legislators, the governor, and others to advocate for why we need support at our university, that has become more of a challenge, I think, for universities to tell our story and not tell it in a reactive way, but talk about, as you said, the transformative power of higher education. And that's what I spent. So I spend a lot of my time talking to business leaders, non-profit organizations, local city government, and our state government and our congressional delegation about why we are so important for workforce development, why we're so important to the state, and why the outcomes of our positive outcomes benefit everyone. For example, 80% of our students that graduate from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse stay in Wisconsin, and they become citizens, they become taxpayers, they become business leaders, and they are getting an education and staying here. And that is a transformative effect, not on just for themselves and for their families, which we know is important. It's also transformative for the state and the region. So that's been I talk a lot more about that as in addition to the quality education that a student gets for themselves, if that makes sense.
And so there are a number of equity students, if I'm still allowed to use that that term, who come and experience the transformative effects of education. How do you support those students to be successful?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the most important thing that we do here is that we make sure that all of our students from all walks of life are successful and that all the students feel that this is a campus where they belong, regardless of their background, whether they're first generation college student like myself, whether they're from a rural area, whether they're from an urban area, whatever their background, are they an international student? That they belong here as much as anybody else. They have to meet our criteria to get in. We have criteria, academic standards that they have to meet in order to get here. We actually have what's called a selective regional university, which means they have to meet certain requirements. They have to write an essay, for example. We read that to make sure that they will be successful here. We don't have open admissions in the same way that other places do. We do have a selective process. We're not as selective as other institutions, but we are moderately selective. So we make sure that we have all the supports needed for all the students that meet those academic requirements. And that's really important to us. So I would say we are very supportive of all students. And we know that because our retention rates are very strong. So for example, our retention rate of first year students is 86%. That's 10 percentage points higher than our cohort or our peer institutions, which means our students are more successful. They graduate in 4 years, not more than other institutions. So we know that our cost of attendance is low and students graduate quickly with a fine education and they are retained. Those are great outcomes. And you can talk about that to any student. That if you come here, you're going to get a good education and you're going to graduate and you will belong here. There are supports for all of our students. And that's really important when we think about what is it that we are doing here.
You talked about one of the platforms is mind and body,
Hmm.
and I read the mind part as well-being.
Yes.
Are you seeing new sort of presentations of students struggling in the sort of ambiguity and complexity of contemporary life?
Well, I would say to some degree, yes. I would say there are some students that are finding some things harder. We have a very good counselling program here where students do not have to wait too long to be seen, which is important. We have telehealth as well. So if students need something quickly and it's not an emergency situation, they can get help quickly. I would
Hmm.
say yes, there are some challenges, but our students are very positive for the most part and very supportive of each other. And I think that is really important to know. We have peer advising and mentoring programs so that students, who are juniors, in their third year can help support newly arrived students. And we have a lot of academic advisors that support students. So I think they're doing very well. I think there's a little bit of a difference now, for example, than 2 or 3 years ago in higher education. Uh, my understanding is this year is the first year that we have students who were in middle school during COVID,
Hmm.
and therefore they have gone through a transition to high school and now a transition to college, whereas before it was students who were in high school and hadn't gone through a change in terms of like meeting new people, forming all those new relationships. And I think that's helping us a little bit. Students are more engaged now than they were a couple of years ago. And I'm hearing that across the higher education sector, other universities with different kinds of students than we have in terms of their demographics and what have you. But I think for the most part, students are supported. We are all the thing that keeps me up at night are the things I don't know. Is a student dealing with some issue that we do not know that we can support them because they don't know where to go or they don't feel comfortable. That's what worries me. So making sure that students know what the resources are, get to meet people so that they feel that if they are in some kind of crisis that they can go and get help. That's really important to me. We want to make sure our students are safe and that they feel that they are supported and they will be supported. That's really important. And we have a good record here of that. And I'm really appreciative of all the work that the counseling center does, our student health center, and our faculty and staff who really go out to support their students every day.
You brought COVID up, and this
Mhm.
latest sort of generation of students have a different experience of it. But in terms of COVID, it was a major inflection point in higher education.
Yes.
Things that had been put on the back burner to change, particularly about delivery, particularly about the integration of technology, had to be
Hmm.
done in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Oh, I remember. Yeah.
So when you reflect on COVID, what are the sort of the residue, if I can put it in inverted commas, benefits in terms of reshaping higher education and reimagining higher education? That COVID was actually a really it was something that had to be done. There was no point in saying we can't do it.
I think that mindset, I think what you just hit on, Judith, is very important, is that, you know, sometimes you have to make decisions pretty quickly. You have to make decisions. You have to do the best you can. Don't make the perfect enemy of the good, as Voltaire said. You've got to really try and make sure that you are doing the best you can and that we can adapt, that higher education is adaptable. Now, we at this University of Wisconsin-La Crosse, we have stayed with the in-person small class approach to teaching. We have not gone down the online delivery model. We have some for some of our graduate programs, but for our undergraduate, which is 9,500 out of our 10,500 students, so we're predominantly an undergraduate university, we still pride ourselves on the classroom experience, the extracurricular, the high impact practices. So we have doubled down on that and made sure that we've invested in those areas. So we are a lot more adaptable, we're more agile, and we really are paying attention to what our students' needs are, which means listening to students. And I think out of COVID, I think one of the things that higher education is doing better is listening to the needs of our students and meeting them where they are and not saying you need to always get to here, but sometimes we need to make sure that we are supporting. And I think the other element is making sure that we continue to be good partners with our cities, our regions, and our communities to break down that sort of ivory tower approach that you sometimes see in higher education, particularly in the United States, And we do not do that here. We are in the community is with us, it's a reciprocal relationship. And I think COVID helped that because we realized we've all got to help each other. We're all here in it. There's, everyone's got to work together. And I'm very proud of the fact that this university is extremely engaged with the community, does a lot of amazing things with businesses, with non-profits, corporations, small businesses, volunteering, and we listen. I have a community forum every semester on campus, and I listen to business leaders, and they tell me what they need. I go and visit with them, and other people on our campus do the same thing. And it's just an amazing relationship. And I think COVID helped that.
And given the size of the university, the size of La
Mhm.
Crosse, the boundaries are probably more fluid for you
Yes.
to be able to do that.
They are very much so. So yes, so Lacoste is about 50,000 people, just over 50,000, hemmed in by the bluffs on one side, which are some hills, and then by the Mississippi River. There's about 100,000 people in the whole area as a whole. And yes, I mean, our students work downtown. Our students go downtown to the coffee shops and they go to the stores. And people come here. There are people from the community come to our football games. I live downtown. I walk around and get to know people. We're very much part of the community, and we embrace that. We embrace that, and that's one of our attractions for students. They want to come where they can, they can walk downtown in like 15 blocks, and they're downtown. It's great. And I see students. I walk up and down the streets myself because I'm a walker, and I see students walking down to go to the coffee shop, and they tell me what they've been doing. They talk to other folks. So you go places, and there are students there with community members. It's great, and a lot of our alums live in town.
Mhm,
It's great.
mhm.
It's great.
So if you and I were to talk in 5 years' time,
Hmm.
what sort of things do you think we'd talk about in terms of higher education in general, but also the student experience and helping students to be successful?
Well, it's a great question. So, what I would say is this: I would hope we would talk about all our successes and all the great things that we've done together with our community. I think you would see higher education. It's hard to know where things are going to be in 5 years' time. But I do think we are going to see where there is more pressure on us to make sure that students can graduate on time, a
Hmm.
movement to shorter time period for degree programs, and making sure that we have great outcomes for our students and keeping cost of attendance down as much as we possibly can. And I think also making sure that we're responding to the needs of the future. What are those needs? We can't be just in the past. I think you're going to see a university even more engaged with the community, even more responsive to the needs around us, playing a leadership role in the region, as well as being a partner, but also like taking the lead on some things, particularly in healthcare and how we can support the health. There are lots of challenges with rural health in this part of the country. What can we do to support that? And I just think being a leader for economic development, we know our economic impact is over $400 million a year. How can that help this region even more so? And I think you would see students, we graduate a number of students every year, and you'd see more of our students living in this region and contributing and being leaders for this great part of Wisconsin and the region as a whole. So I think you'd see a lot of positive outcomes. That's my sense. And I hope we get away from this sort of a viewpoint that's actually a misnomer, but is that higher education is not really responsive to the needs and is sort of not valued. And people understand the return on investment for a college degree again. We know the return on investment is strong, and we also know that the impact on people's lives is phenomenal. And I think if we can move the narrative away from a combative narrative to where higher education is a part of, but only a part of, the success of the region and the state, I think that would be positive. I think if we can get away from this sort of antagonism that's there a little bit, because I think when you see what goes on at a university and what goes on in the community, when people see the reality, it's very different to the stereotype. And I think that's important. And I want people to be supportive and thankful for the investment that we get from the state. We get a lot of investment from our state, and I'm truly thankful for that as a chancellor. And I'm very supportive of all the work that we can do to help the state. So I think that's the sort of conversation that we have, and hopefully that we enjoy doing it.
Indeed, indeed. So if there was one thing that you could do to support students to be successful
Hmm.
next week, what would it be?
Well, if I could wave a magic wand, I would love us to have a lot more in our endowment so that I could give more students, not me personally, but the university could give more scholarships to students to keep the cost and the opportunities, keep the cost down and give more opportunities for like study abroad or high impact practices where students can take advantage of that because a lot of our students work
Mm-hmm.
and they and actually volunteer. They have thousands of hours of volunteer hours every year from the university students. Could we get more so that we can do more with it? I'd like to see us be able to do more to help defray the cost of attendance for students, because I do worry about that. When I went to college in England, it didn't cost me a penny to go to college, apart from my living expenses. But to
Mm-hmm.
go to college, there were no fees, there were no tuition. uh, I can't imagine going to college as an 18-year-old and having to think that keeps me up at night. How are students going to be able to afford to go to college? So if I could do one thing, it would be to do that, to make it so that we have more scholarships to support students and give them opportunities because we have, philanthropic support for students to go and spend that 3 weeks in Ireland or go to do a high impact practice as a researcher on the Mississippi River because they don't have to work while they do it. Or they can work on a research paper with a faculty member for the summer and not have to necessarily, work 3 jobs in the summer. Maybe just work 2 jobs. So that's what I wish I could do. That's what, if I could wave my wand, that's what I'd like to do.
So back to you,
Yeah.
reflecting on your career, what advice would you give to the younger James?
Well, that's interesting. Hindsight's 2020, as they say. I would say to enjoy life. I think I've enjoyed life pretty well, but I would say to enjoy life, and I think probably to I wish I'd traveled more than I did when I was younger. I didn't have a lot of money, so I turned down invitations to go to Greece and go to this, that, and the other places, and I wish I'd made it work to see more things. I've traveled a lot. I've been to lots of parts of Europe. I've been to West Africa. Of course, I've lived in the United States, but I haven't traveled to all the places I want to. And there were places that I could have gone to that I didn't. And I wish I'd done that and taken the plunge, if you will, and spent time doing that. But I didn't. And that's the advice I would give myself. And to carry on working hard. And, I think the other thing is to understand people. I feel like I have a better understanding of people now than I did when I was 21 years old. And I wish I'd spent more time trying to understand the people around me. I think I did a pretty good job, but I wish I could have met more people from more cultures because only then would I understand that.
And so, what advice do you give to students when you're talking to them in the refectory?
Well, I always tell them be yourself, be the best you can be, and be kind to yourself, and be kind to those around you. My grandmother told me this, and she was a very smart woman. She said, "You always remember a kindness and you always remember an unkindness. You never
Mm-hmm.
forget it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
be kind and do not be unkind." And and the other thing she told me was, you can disagree, but don't be disagreeable. So don't spend your time just with people that agree with everything that you believe already. We live in echo chambers today. There's too much of this talking to the same people. And it's meet new people, talk and learn to disagree and not be disagreeable. Because you're going to learn. You might think, oh, that's actually an interesting idea. Take the time to do that. Take the time to talk to people, break bread, and just spend time with each other. That breaks down a lot of things in society. And I would say do that. Do that and do the best you can be to be successful. And make sure you give back and help others. There's this famous saying, lifting as you climb. As you climb the ladder of success, help those behind you. People did that to me, Judyth. I would tell you, my grandparents did that. They left school at 12 years old. They supported me. My father was working at 15. He supported me. And people have helped me all through. I've got where I am, partly because of my own hard work, but really because of the support, love, and generosity of so many other people. And please do that to others, is what I would say to the students, because it will make a big difference.
clearly your grandparents live on within you, as do
Oh
your
yeah,
parents, and
every day.
that's a great story. My last question
Hmm.
is a little whimsical.
Okay.
What are you reading at the moment?
Well, it's whimsical, but I'm going to give you the really boring answer first. Is I spend a lot of time reading spreadsheets and reports and all different things with strategic planning and system-wide things and all that sort of great stuff. So reading these days is not. I don't read as much as I used to by any means. But my wife did get me a book for my birthday a few weeks ago, which I am reading. It's 500 pages, so I don't know how long it's going to take me, and it's called Electric Eden, and it's a book about the history of folk music in the United Kingdom, in England particularly, but the United Kingdom. I love. There's two kinds of music I like. I like soul music from the United States. Grew up with that in the when I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and I love folk music from the United Kingdom, Scottish music, Irish, Welsh, and English music. And this book sort of is a history of how that happened in the 1960s and 70s. You may not have heard of someone called Richard Thompson, a very famous folk singer, guitarist, and some other folks. And the history behind that, what was happening in Britain in terms of the movement from urban to rural to urban, the influx of rural kind of sentiment in popular culture with the BBC and other things talking about this. It's a fascinating book in the inside of how that music emerged and its roots back in the medieval period all the way through to the Victorian time and the early 20th century. So that's what I'm reading right now. It's fascinating. But the second book I'm reading is a book that I got yesterday. I was in Indiana seeing Ron Roshan. We went to a new inauguration of a former colleague of ours where we both worked at the University of Southern Indiana. And one of my very good friends there, Matthew Graham, is the previous poet laureate of Indiana.
Mhm.
And he gave me his latest book of poetry, which is a very short book of poems, and it's just a wonderful book. And I was reading that on my airplane ride yesterday, coming back to La Crosse. I didn't get in until midnight, and it's just a wonderful book. It's called the Indiana series, and it's very evocative, and you know, it's spellbinding for me. So I just read that, and I know him very well. He's a good friend of mine. So I got to read some poetry. I love poetry, and got to read that on the plane and in the airport with my delays yesterday. So that's where I am in terms of my reading.
James, thank you for a most enjoyable 45 minutes. I would really like to break bread with you, but that's not possible because I think we've got a lot of things in common. Soul music, love it.
I love that, and one day I might make it to Australia because there's an Ashes Test series coming up, and I will be watching that from here from the United States. But that's probably something we don't have in common because we'll probably cheer for different teams. But there's a lot more that unites us than divides us.
Exactly, and I think it will be a very interesting series. But of course, we know who will win.
We know who will win. I used to play cricket for my college. I was terrible, but I like the tees. So we'll see. We'll see who wins.
Look, I hope you've enjoyed our
I
conversation as
very
much as
much.
I have.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking time to talk with me. And this is wonderful. And I look forward to seeing more of what you do and look forward to listening.
You have been listening to Studiosity's podcast, Reimagining Higher Education, candid conversations within higher education, sharing stories of leadership, change, and best practice in teaching and learning. Visit studiosity.com.